Well, hello girls and boys. It's story time with Mrs. Fewtrell again. Now today I'm going to read you one of the stories I really like to read, and it's called Sody, Sallyratus. Well, before I begin reading you this story about Jack and the bear and the Sody Sallyratus, I guess I better tell you what Sody Sallyratus is. I bet you and your mom and your dad use it when you're cooking in your kitchen. And we call it bicarbonate of soda. But of course, Jack and his ma and his family called it Sody Sallyratus. So now you know what it is. Right, well, this is a story about Jack. And he goes on mighty adventures. And this time, it's him meeting up with the bear. Let me tell you the story. One fine morning when Jack was on his way from here to there, he decided to stop in and visit his ma and his two brothers, Will and Tom. They were all mighty glad to see Jack, and as soon as the howdy-doos were over, well, Ma went into her kitchen to make some biscuits for breakfast. And the boys sat on that front porch, and Jack began to tell him of his adventures with that giant. And all of a sudden they heard an awful racket coming from the kitchen. "Land's sake!" hollered Ma. "I done run out of my Sody Sallyratus. And without my Sody Sallyratus, I can't be baking no biscuits." She sat there looking at the porch, looked at those three boys sitting there, and she said, "Tom, get yourself down to the store and fetch me back some Sody Sallyratus. And don't you be dawdling in the creek looking for crawdads now, Tom." "Don't you worry, Ma," said Tom. "I'll be back before the dew's dry on the laurel." Look, it's running away. Off Tom ran down the crooked path to get some Sody Sallyratus, and the path twisted over the ridge and hung on to the steep side of the mountain. After a bit, Tom could hear the sound of Cold Water Creek, and he knew he was getting close to that rickety old footbridge that crossed over the water. Just as Tom started to tramp across the bridge, up reared the biggest and ugliest bear he'd ever laid eyes on. "Ha!" growled the bear. "Here comes my breakfast, tramping across my bridge," and before Tom could blink an eye, the bear gobbled him up. Well, back at the cabin, Ma decided to come out on the porch and hear all about Jack's adventures. And the morning slipped away as Jack told her and Will all about everything he'd seen and done since his last visit. And eventually Ma went to the edge of the mountain and she peered across the ledge. "Now where is that Tom?" she exclaimed. "I just bet he's down by the creek messing with them crawdads. Will, you run down there and fetch back that worthless boy and my Sody Sallyratus." "Don't worry, Ma," said Will. "I'll be back before the sun crosses the high ridge." And off Will ran, down the crooked path to find Tom and the Sody Sallyratus, and it wasn't long before he was crossing the rickety old footbridge over Cold Water Creek. And suddenly there was a great roar from underneath, and then Will was standing face to face with the big bear. "Ha!" growled the bear. "Here comes my dinner tramping across my bridge." And with that, he gobbled Will up in one bite. Back at the cabin, Jack was helping his ma with her chores. And they talked about this and they talked about that, and the sun climbed higher and higher in the sky. But Tom and Will still weren't back with that Sody Sallyratus. "Them boys are both as useless as they come," said Ma. "Why I bother sending them at all to do anything is a wonder to me. Jack, you just set yourself down and rest a bit. I'm going to go find them boys and my box of Sody Sallyratus and drag them all three back up here. I'll be back before dark falls." Look, off she went. Well, off Ma went down the crooked path to find Tom and Will and the Sody Sallyratus, and she stomped across that rickety old footbridge over Cold Water Creek, and the bear sprang up in front of her. "Ha!" growled the bear. "Here comes my supper," stomping across that bridge, and he gobbled up Ma. Now he's got her glasses and Tom's hat and Will's pipe. Ooh, gobbled them all up. Now back at the cabin, Jack waited around and waited around till he could wait around no longer. "Something about this just ain't right," he said to himself. "I reckon I'm going to have to go down the mountain and see what's keeping everybody." So Jack went down the crooked path to look for his Ma and Will and Tom and that Sody Sallyratus. "Maybe I'll run into them on their way back up," he said. And pretty soon he was trotting across that rickety old footbridge, and just like before, the bear popped up from under the bridge. "Ha!" he laughed. "Here's me another little bite to eat." "Hold on there, friend," hollered Jack. "Have you seen my Ma and my brothers come by here?" "Sure, I seen 'em," growled the bear. "They came stomping across my bridge, disturbing my sleep, and I gobbled 'em up, and I'm gonna gobble you up too." And the bear opened his jaws as wide as he could, and he edged closer and closer to Jack. "Well, friend, you're going to have to catch me first," yelled Jack as he ran back up the path and shinnied up the first tree he came to. Well, Jack had always been a quick sort of fellow, and he climbed as fast as he could, jumping from one branch to the other, and when he looked down, the bear was close behind him. Jack climbed and climbed till his head popped out into the sky. He had run out of tree. What's going to happen? Now that big old bear got closer and closer to the top, and as he did, the tree began to lean more and more and more to one side. In fact, it was almost touching the ground. Look, it's almost touching the ground. And when the bear finally poked through the last of those branches, he saw Jack standing just a few feet off the ground. "Well, it won't do you no good to jump down there, boy," said the bear. "I just come after you. If you stand still and let me eat you now, it'll save us both a lot of trouble." "Well," said Jack, "you're probably right. You might as well come over and get it over with." The bear crawled out onto the edge of the tree towards Jack and opened his jaws as wide as he could, and just as he slammed them shut, Jack jumped down. And the tree twitched and trembled and then sprang straight up, flinging the bear out of its branches and over the treetop and across Cold Water Creek. There's Jack saying, "Oh, look, he's up in the sky." And the bear hit the ground so hard that Tom and Will and Jack's Ma just popped right out, safe and sound. "Woo-wee!" Ma shouted to Jack. "Me and these boys just had some kind of adventure. Let's go on home now, and you can tell me all about it," laughed Jack. So Tom and Will and Ma and Jack headed all the way back up the crooked path to their cabin. And feeling mighty hungry from a day's worth of excitement, the boys rushed into the cabin and sat down to eat, and Jack's Ma went into her kitchen and came back out and said, "Now, which one of you boys has my Sody Sallyratus?" Did anyone have it? Uh-oh, nothing to eat. No biscuits for dinner for them tonight. And that was the adventure of Jack and the bear and the Sody Sallyratus. Did you like it? Well, I'm glad you could join me today for a story. Thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye!